Hello, and welcome to Every Persona Explained, where we take a look at the origin and representation of every persona. And today we're taking a look at Orpheus. So if you know Orpheus, you probably know him from his trip into the underworld to save his wife. And we'll get there, but first, who is Orpheus? Orpheus was a Greek musician and poet born in Thrace. His parentage is somewhat disputed, but most sources agree that his mother was a muse Calliope, no, not that one, and his father was either King Oeagrus of Thrace or the god Apollo, who also gave Orpheus his golden lyre. Most modern-day depictions of Apollo often show him in his aspects as a sun god, however he was also the god of music and poetry. As a result of Apollo being his father and or patron, Orpheus was believed to have been the best musician in the world, playing music so well that he could charm any living thing with it, with Ovid claiming that he allured the trees, the savage animals, and even the incessant rocks to follow him. Orpheus was also a priest, but not for Apollo. Orpheus was a priest of Dionysus and was said to be the founder of the Dionysian Mysteries, a series of rites and rituals conducted by the followers of Dionysus that were, as you might have guessed, a secret kept from the non-initiated. And considering we only have vague ideas of what these rites were, I'd say they did a decent job at it. So now that we know who Orpheus is, let's learn about Eurydice. Eurydice was a nymph of some kind who fell in love and married Orpheus. Shortly after getting married, Eurydice dies after being bitten by a snake, while either dancing with the group of nymphs in the woods, or whilst fleeing someone who wanted to do non-consensual things to her. And that's basically it. Yes, Eurydice is a classic example of female characters only existing to motivate men, and also possibly the earliest known example of fridging. Having lost the love of his life, Orpheus did the thing that all sad musicians do, and played a bunch of emo music. However, this is Orpheus, the best musician ever. So the music he played was so tragic and heart-wrenching that everyone who heard it got super depressed. So Orpheus decided to, was sent to, the underworld to try and get Eurydice back. After journeying to the underworld, crossing the river Styx, and getting past the three-headed good boy, he meets Hades and Persephone, the king and queen of the underworld. Before them, he played music and recited poetry so moving that the entire underworld and all of its inhabitants stopped and listened. Hades and Persephone, being moved by his performance, decide to let him take Eurydice home with him, on the condition that as he's leading her out of the underworld, he doesn't look back to see if she's following him. Side note, in Plato's Symposium, he claims that instead of the real Eurydice, Hades produced a fake, and that Hades and Persephone had no intention of actually letting Eurydice go. Plato even referred to Orpheus as a coward. Damn, brother, that's cold. Anyways, Orpheus starts leading Eurydice back to the world of the living, but as he gets closer to the exit, he starts doubting that Eurydice is actually behind him. Just before he reaches the exit, he turns around to see that Eurydice had in fact been following him. Unfortunately, this violated the one condition set by Hades, and Eurydice was pulled back to the underworld, never to be let out. As you can imagine, this only made his mood worse, and Orpheus decided to forsake all of the gods except for Apollo, and swear off relationships with women for the rest of his life. Not with men, though. This is ancient Greece, after all. So Orpheus goes about his life, playing music and spurning the advances of women, until a group of Maenads, female followers of Dionysus, either angered by his spurn of Dionysus or his spurn of their advances, decided that the thing to do was to literally tear him apart. Fangirls, am I right? Don't feel too bad, though, because according to Ovid, Dionysus decided to punish these women by turning them into trees. So that's Orpheus, ancient Greek poet, musician, and murder victim. How do the Persona games represent him? Well, visually, I think it's pretty good. Specifically, the giant lyre. Orpheus is almost always depicted with his lyre, except for when he's depicted with a violin or a fiddle or something. But most of those seem to be from the Renaissance or later, and I don't count those. Now you may be thinking that that's the only element of the design that really references Orpheus. But I have a theory, so just bear with me. The design of his limbs barely being connected to his body could be a reference to his dismembering, and the bright red scarf around his neck could be a reference to his decapitation. Is this a stretch? Yes. Is it more probable that they just came up with a cool robot design and wanted to use that? Also, yes. And the same really goes for the other versions. Telos is just a color swap, the female version is the same but is a girl now, and the Picaro versions are just edgy. There may also be a reference during Protag Kun's awakening cutscene. When they first awaken to the persona, it's Orpheus, but it quickly changes to Thanatos, the Greek god of death, before switching back to Orpheus. This could emulate Orpheus' journey to and return from the underworld. So, all that considered, I think the representation's pretty good. Now, Orpheus being the starting persona of a protag in a Persona game, it is in the full Arcana. Now you could go, of course he's a fool, he walked into the underworld to try to get his dead wife back. To which I say, firstly, this is ancient Greek mythology, that kind of happened regularly. Secondly, that's not all the fool means. Just like with all the Arcana, it's a little more nuanced than that. When drawn upright, the fool is representative of beginnings and innocence, which fit really well for the protagonists, but not super well with Orpheus. But when the fool is in the reverse position, it represents recklessness and, yes, foolishness. This, I think, fits better with Orpheus, considering his doomed trip to the underworld. What about his stats and moveset? In Persona 3, Orpheus learns Agi, and in the answer, Agilao. These fit well with his patron and maybe Father Apollo in his aspect of a sun god. They also learn Tarunda, and in the answer, again, Dia. These could be references to his skills with poetry and music, which is often associated with healing and support abilities. And his unique skill Cadenza also fits with that. His physical moves could just be there to flesh out the move pool, or it could be that getting hit with a giant lyre would probably hurt. In Persona 5 and Royale, it's largely the same, fire attacks and buffing and healing moves. However, the female form getting Neo Cadenza is wild, as it's a big heal and a buff to all stats. Song must slap. When you itemize it in Persona 5, you get either the Hades harp, using the male version, or the graceful harp, using the female version in Royale. And their trait is Circle of Sadness, which allows you to revive 4 times. Those are pretty obvious references, although I don't know why it lets you revive 4 times. That seems a bit OP. Now, in the Persona Q games, it gets a little weird. They retain fire moves, but in Q1 they receive cut moves? I don't know why. So overall, I would say, pretty good representation, not enough lyre solos. Thank you very much for watching. Did I leave anything out? Did I get anything wrong? And who should be next? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Every Persona Explained.